Hi everyone, my name is Kim and I'm the founder and creator of Expat Mama. Through these interviews that are both in the audio podcast and the new YouTube channel, we educate people about what it's like to be an expat, which is someone who's left their native country to live in another, and we tell their stories. Today, my guest is Christie Ogden, who's from Canada. She's a dear friend of mine, even though we've never met face to face. We've tried, just hasn't happened yet. She's originally from Alberta, Canada, and currently lives back in Canada, which is rare since we met while she was traveling around Latin America and the Caribbean. I'm so excited to interview you today, Christie. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. So can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what it was like?
I grew up in Alberta, which is Western Canada. It was kind of a dysfunctional family. And so it wasn't a great upbringing, but I made the best of it. And then I married someone that I probably shouldn't have, was very abusive and that kind of thing. And I had kids with him. I had 4 kids with him. And when I started having kids, I thought, I'd like to travel because that had always been something that I had dreamed of my whole life. And but I believed what people told me, which was you can't travel with kids. You have to wait until they're older and you have to wait until you retire.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so I had 4 kids. And then when my youngest of my 4 turned 10, I got pregnant again. And I thought my life was over because now I had no hope of ever traveling because I would have to wait until he left home. And, I would be too old to even remember what that dream was. So, and then I started trying to figure out how I could travel with my kids.
And how did that start? A lot of people think, I know your story, but our viewers don't. And a lot of people think that when you begin to travel, it's a whole different concept than what we've discovered. So how did it begin? Let's tell the real story.
Okay, so I got pregnant with my 5th child, and things were not great. I was in a not great relationship, and money was tight because he had quit his job and we were living off just my income, which was not enough to pay rent and pay bills and things like that. And so everything was getting cut off, power was getting cut off, heat was getting cut off. I had to sit my kids down, tell them we couldn't have Christmas.
Oh, that's so hard.
And I didn't know what to do. So my mom lived in a neighboring province, which is like a state in the States. And she had bought her house for $2,000. And so my mom and I weren't super close, but I called her and I said, look, I'm in a predicament and I really need a place. And so I went out there for a week to visit, and I found a house. It was $8,000 for a 4-bedroom house, and the lady would take payments.
Nice.
So not a mortgage or
God universe, really.
She would just take payments until I had paid the house off. So I was paying $400 a month for this house, and then when it was paid off, I would get the deed kind of thing, and everything would be changed into my name. And so we moved from a big city to this tiny little community with 6 streets, and there was only about 20 people living in the community at that time because and we were the youngest people there. Everybody else was like over 80.
Wow, over 80. Like where I live now.
So everybody, all of those families, all their kids had left and gone to the city to work and to raise their families and stuff. And so all these empty houses were left. So I got this house and we moved in, and it was working okay, but it just wasn't home. I just didn't feel like it was home. Like, you know, all my neighbors are over 80. What do I have in common with them? You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm the only family. There was another family that had kids, but their kids were Mennonite or something like
Mennonites.
that.
Yeah,
And
which is
they
like the
were
Amish. Yeah. Oh,
right,
wow.
and they weren't allowed to play with my kids because we were too, I don't know.
You
Like
weren't
we
part of
had
their
TV,
community. That's just the way
right?
it is. Yeah.
Like we had TV, and my kids had video games and things like that, and they weren't allowed that. So anyway, and so we were pretty isolated, you know. And so then the baby was born, and it was like I think there was snow on the ground, so it was about November, December, and I was up feeding the baby one night, and I thought, you know, we could probably live in like an RV or a bus, and it would be cheaper. So I put an ad on the Canadian version of Craigslist for, you know, I'm a single mom with kids, and I'm looking to buy a bus, and you know, this is the dream, blah blah blah, and this is my criteria, and my budget is only $1,000. And so I thought, if somebody answers, like emails me, it's meant to be, and if not, then I'll just suck it up and stay where we are.
Okay.
And like a week later, this guy messaged me, and he said, I have a bus, it's in really good condition, and I'll take $1,000 for it. And we were like, okay. So I drove 6 hours in the middle of winter to go see this bus. He started it for me to show me that it ran, but we couldn't drive it anywhere because the snow was so high and it had been parked. And like they had plowed in front of the bus. So there's all this snow piled up. So we couldn't drive it anywhere. And he said to me, we went in to kind of into the house to talk about it. And he said to me, we're really religious. And, you know, he said, I believe that God brought us to you and we need to help you. So you can make 4 payments on this bus, and you can even take it today. Like you make your first payment, you can take it today. I trust that you'll pay me. And I was like, what? Okay. So we took the bus home.
I'm about ready to like break into hallelujah chorus here. Seriously, what a godsend.
So I made the payments, and the bus was ours, and you know, we took the seats out and stuff. And then April, we only had 2 months left of paying on the house. And I was like, you know what? I don't really care if I own the house or not. Like, I'm just ready to be out of here. And so April 20th, we packed up what we could fit into the house and sold the rest, and or donated it, and we moved in the bus. And the bus had nothing done to it. Like we had put plywood floors down, and we had put a sofa that somebody had given me in, but the rest was like just mattresses on the floor, and like we didn't have a kitchen, we didn't have a bathroom, we didn't have nothing, you know. And we had put a piece of plywood across the back and put our queen mattress there, so we had a bed, kind of, sorta, and that was it. You know, the kids slept on the couch, and off we went. And only 2 of my 4 big kids went with us, because my older 2 have special needs, and they wanted to go live with grandma and grandpa because grandma and grandpa have a horse ranch, and that's where they wanted to be.
Yeah.
So the 2 younger came with us and the baby. And so we traveled around, and just around Canada, and we didn't even go into the States because I had read that if you have an orange school bus that's not painted a different color, a lot of the campgrounds in the States won't allow you to park there. And I didn't have enough money to paint the bus.
Yeah.
So we were just driving around in this orange school bus, you know, that still said school bus on it. It didn't say the school division because that had been blacked out and stuff, but it still said school bus on it, you know.
Excuse me, you didn't want to say Christie's awesome, out of this world school bus. You couldn't just paint that like graffiti. I'm just kidding.
Like, we honestly didn't even have enough to buy however many cans of spray paint it would
I'm
cost
just
to
kidding.
paint the bus. But we stayed on like farmers' property, like land, and places where it was free. Like there's all kinds of free places where you can park and stuff. And so we did that. And then it got to the fall time and it was starting to get cold. We didn't have a heater in the bus. We didn't have anything. And I was like, we are going to freeze to death if we stay here. So I had been to the Dominican Republic a few years before on a vacation with a friend of mine, and we had met a guy there. And so I called her. My friend actually dated the guy, and they weren't dating anymore. And I called her and I said, do you still have that guy's number? She's like, yes. Why? Are you going to date him? No.
That's the next question. Are you going to date him?
So I called him and I said, hi, remember me? And he said, yeah. And I said, can you help me? Sure, why? We want to move to the Dominican Republic where you live, and I need a place to rent and I need it to not cost a lot. He's like, okay. And so at that time, like, he had no Facebook, he had email, but you would have to call him and say, I sent you an email, and he'd say, okay, I go check it. So
what year are we talking about here?
2011, but
10 years ago. Okay.
But no, this was 2010, sorry. So he was not really computer savvy. So he said, call me on Wednesday, like in 2 days, and I'll tell you what I found. Okay. So I called him back and he said, I found an apartment, or like he said a house. It was more like a cabin, but he said, I found a house. I said, okay. He said, it's $300 to rent. I said, okay. He said, if you pay me the deposit, if you send me the deposit, I'll pay her. And then when you get here, you can pay the rent for when you get here. Okay.
Nice. So deposit plus one month of rent.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I sent him the deposit and I bought tickets. So after buying tickets and sending the deposit, I had $300 left for like 27 days until I got money again. And that's what we had to live off of when we arrived in the Dominican Republic. So I called him and I said, okay, I bought tickets. Can you pick us up? Yes. And we had the place. And I said, but I don't have a lot of money for the rest of the month. And he said, it's okay. He said, what I have, you have. So, and like, I had gone, so the extent of our friendship was he dated my friend while we were there. We had gone like 2 or 3 times. And while we were there, he would, take us around and stuff. But really, that was the extent of our friendship, And then when we got there, he picked us up from the airport, and every day he would come to my house. His mom lives up in the country, and he would drive up there on his motorbike with a big rice sack and fill the rice sack with like fruit and vegetable from his mom's plantation up at the top of the mountain, and bring it down and bring it to me and say, this is for you, so you don't have to buy food.
Oh, stop it,
I was
Christie.
like,
You started crying, and then I'm gonna start crying. Oh my word, what a story. It is a true story, and it's amazing how you were just provided for. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was our first month, and then things got better, because I had more money, obviously. I didn't just buy airline tickets and didn't just pay rent and deposit, kind of thing. So things got better, and we lived there for just over a year. And then we went back to Canada for a while. And then we just kept, to me, it was cheaper to travel than it was to live in Canada, you know,
Oh, yeah.
especially places that don't get winter, you know, like I didn't have a heating bill and I didn't have a huge power bill and I didn't have, you know, all these extra things that, like, even internet, you know, internet where we were was $30 a month. I can't get internet here in Canada for $30 a month. It's like over 100.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You know, like, and even phones, you know, like I currently just even just paying, you know, you pay per month, and if you don't pay, then you don't have a phone kind of thing. Like not on a credit kind of thing.
Prepaid.
That's the word. I have that here, and it's $55 a month. You know, and it's pretty limiting. Like I have unlimited texting, and I don't have unlimited data. I use the internet in the house, but you know, like when we were in Mexico, I paid, I think it was $15 was what it worked out to for the conversion, but I got unlimited calling to Mexico, Canada, and the US, and I got unlimited data, and I got, you know what I mean? Like I had so much more offered for so much cheaper than what I have here.
Yeah. There's a big difference. Of course, you're working, you know, they have to sell telecommunications in lower currency and cheaper countries. So, but it's pretty much like the bare minimum cost. I know that here in Mexico, once I bought my phone, I mean, all I do is put in, you know, credit once in a while, which ends up being at the very most $10 a month, if that's inexpensive, but really about $5 a month, 100 pesos, you know?
Yeah. And for me, I prefer having data or internet while I'm traveling because I don't call a lot of people like on my phone because I often don't speak the language. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're in Thailand, you're not going to call the restaurant in Thailand to put an order in because you don't speak Thai. Do you know? And it's, for me, it's so much easier in a lot of countries outside of North America, they use WhatsApp. And so you can WhatsApp them using Google Translate, and then they'll message it back, and then you can use Google Translate to read what they've written. And then you're like, oh, I just did an order. Like I ordered food without speaking the language. Look at me, you know?
Yeah.
So having data is pretty important while you're traveling.
For sure.
More so than when you're not, you know? So
keep going with your story. I'm just a facilitator. So how did things play out from that point on? You're over in the DR. You were there for a year, and then you came back to Canada.
Yeah. And so when we left for the DR, my baby at the time, he's 11 now, his dad was with us. And then, so we came back to Canada. He was 2 when we came back. And while we were in the Dominican, we would host couch surfers to stay with us. And a lady who was from Michigan stayed with us because she had been in Haiti for a while. And she just wanted to come to the Dominican and relax before she went back to Michigan. Anyway, while she was visiting, we got into a motorcycle accident. And nobody was really hurt seriously. But anyway, fast forward, we went back to Canada. We were going to go to China to teach English, but I didn't feel right about it. Like I would ask about visas, and the guy that I was talking to said, just come, we'll sort out the visa when you get here. And I was like, I don't feel good with that, especially with kids. You know, I don't mind going to jail myself, but I'm not going to jail when my kids are in a foreign country that they don't know anybody. So I said, no, we're not doing that. But we came back to Canada on the 28th of October because my kids wanted to celebrate Halloween with their friends. And it was minus 28 degrees Celsius, which
big shock to your system.
Really, really cold. And so we stayed for Christmas, and that partner and I got married in November, because in order for him to come to China with us, we had to be married. So we got married, and then we didn't end up going to China. Anyway, then we were gonna, you know, I was starting to get really depressed. We're staying with a friend, and, you know, it's cold and it's miserable, and, you know, the job didn't pan out, and, you know, and I said, maybe we should just go back to the Dominican, because we know we can rent something cheap there. We know we like the weather, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, you and the kids go back, and I'll stay here and get my shoulder looked at from the accident, and then I'll be there in a month. So we came back, and he didn't come back. And so that was January. And then from January until May, like after a few months, I just blocked him, because, you know, he'd send me a message one day and he'd say, oh, I love you so much, I can't wait to come there. And then the next day he'd tell me he hated me and I was no good for anything. And he was just really off and on, and really, I just didn't want to deal with that. So I just blocked him, and we just went about our life. And then in May, he sent me a message, and he said, I've never told anybody this, but he sent me a message, and he said, I'm coming tomorrow. And I was like, what do you mean you're coming tomorrow? Coming where tomorrow? He's like, coming there tomorrow. And at the same time that I was messaging him, I'm in an internet center, and my best friend, where we had been staying at the time when we were in Canada, messaged me and said, if he sends you a message with anything weird, just ignore it. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I can't tell you right now, but just ignore it. And I was like, what is going on? Anyway, so normally when he sends me a message, it's like 2 or 3 sentences and that's it. You know, this was like, you had to sit and read the whole big thing for like a good 5 minutes. And I was like, what is going on? And at the very end, it said, I did not cheat on you, with really big letters. And I was like, what? Anyway, find out later that he was arrested because he had a relationship with the neighbor of my best friend's daughter, who had just turned 13. And he was 47. So he got charged with, you know, child assault,
a minor.
whatever. Right. And but he kept saying, oh, you know, I didn't do anything, and you know, it wasn't me, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, pretty sure it was. But anyway, so I just stayed there. And
it's never them, Christie. It's never their fault.
No.
Been there, done that.
So my friend called me shortly after this whole arrest thing happened, which was happening when he was messaging me. He knew something was going to happen and he was going to leave, and they arrested him later that day. And that's why she couldn't tell me, because she didn't want me to tell him, so that they wouldn't be able to arrest him. But anyway, she phoned and she said, you know, with all of this happening, you have to come home right now. You have to divorce him and we have to deal with this. And I was like, me divorcing him isn't going to change what's happened, and it's not going to make anything go away. So I might as well just stay here, like it's safer for my kids if we're here.
Yeah.
So we just stayed, and then, so we stayed and we continued traveling, and yeah, they've been great since. And then when my youngest was about 2, he was playing outside and all kinds of stuff. And, I was looking at him and I thought, all the big kids are going to leave and leave home, and he's going to be here all alone. And I'm not very good at entertaining kids. I should probably have one more baby. So, so I found a friend to help me out with that. And we have a 7-year-old now. So.
And they're best buds. Those two
they really are.
And they say the funniest things. You always post the things that they say, and at the time you don't always know what they're talking about, and then it clarifies. It's just really fun watching them grow up. I've been watching them grow up for several years now.
It really is, and for me, I think it's because I have 4 bigger kids as well. With my 4 big kids being in an abusive relationship, I really felt, I don't know the word, but I really felt confined. Like I had to parent them in a specific way to avoid abuse. I had to parent them to appease his parents, to appease his grandparents, to appease him. And I couldn't be the parent that I really wanted to be, so I had to parent the way that I was told to parent rather than the way that I felt I should parent.
Right.
And with these 2, because none of their other parents are involved, I can parent how I feel in my heart. And so I've really enjoyed being a parent a second time around, because now, I can, if they say, can I play outside? And it's 7 o'clock in the morning, I can say, sure, instead of, no, because grandma wouldn't like that, or what would grandma say, or what would your dad say?
Always walking on eggshells in those relationships. Yeah.
Right. And so now it's like, yeah, for sure. Or, can I paint? Sure. Because I don't have to please anybody, I don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. So I'm a totally different parent now than I was when my big kids were little. And I really appreciate, because of having the big kids, I appreciate how fast they grow up and move out. And, so, I allow them to be little for a little bit longer, with your oldest, or my 4 big ones, it was, you need to hurry up and learn how to read, because, you're going to need it later in life, or you need to hurry up and learn how to do this. And, and with them, it's like, oh no, you can be little, just a little bit longer,
And can you explain, because they're both special needs, can you explain what's going on with them as far as that goes?
So Riker is not special needs, but
Okay.
Chesney is. So Chesney has autism and developmental delays and severe speech delays. Not so bad now that he's a bit older, but he recently figured out the difference between him and her. For a while there, everybody was a her. Most men were really offended by that.
Yeah.
He'd say, her give me a candy. And you could just see the guy going, I'm not a girl. But
yeah.
And to him, it didn't matter,
Yeah.
And so he just sees the world in a whole different way, and has a whole different way of explaining things, but he has an amazing imagination and an amazing memory. So the other day they were playing, and I forget what I don't even know what they were playing, but this sentence came out, and I said, where is that from? And he said, oh, that's from Zootopia. And I was like, and it was like not the common slogan out of the movie. It was like this tiny little phrase that he remembered from that movie. And I can't tell you the last time he watched that movie. You know,
it's been a while. So we both have autistic sons, and they remember everything. There's nothing that slips their mind. They have like this overly photographic memory.
Right.
So it's always interesting when things just pop out. And really, autism is a different operating system, if you think about it that way. And
Yeah.
I often wonder if I'm the one who's disabled, because honestly, I am so forgetful. I've got so much going on, and also ADHD. That is my thing. But they're like this walking encyclopedia of all kinds of facts and figures and expressions and things that you're
Yeah.
saying.
So like the other day we were at the mall shopping, and we were in the toy store, and this song came on. And I knew he knew the song, but I couldn't remember what movie it was from. I knew it was from a movie. And I said, what movie is this from? And he said, it's from this movie and this movie. It in both. And I was like, what? like I couldn't remember one movie that it was from. And he remembered that it was in two movies, you know? And I was just like, wow, you know?
Exactly. They just, they're amazing
And so
in so many ways, if you just really learn to appreciate them and what they have to bring to the table.
Right.
Then you don't think about it so much as a disability.
Right. And so for me, he's never gone to therapy. He's never done anything like that. Like he didn't start talking until he was 5, almost 6. But I never really stressed it because, you know, my thing is he's not broken and he doesn't need to be fixed, you know. So I just kind of let him do his thing at his own pace, you know, like he's 11. He doesn't read per se, but he has about 200 words that he can spell with plastic letters and knows what they are, but only from memory, from a game that he had on his iPad. It would like kind of explode the letters out, and then they had to put the letters in, you know, and then they had a little song for each word. So like the one day he spelled out, I forget what he spelled out. I think it was humongous. And he spelled it out with plastic letters. And I said, what does that say? And he said, oh, that humongous. And then he sung the song for me.
So cute.
You know, but to ask him, what does H say? He has no idea. Or what letter is that? He has no idea. But he can put the word together.
So it's
just
really,
from
it's a communication disorder more than anything else. They are able to communicate, but in their way.
Right. And so my thing is, like, he doesn't read yet, but, you know, now that he's getting older, we are teaching him like coping skills, you know, like, oh, look, this is a can of peas. Look, it has peas on it. Or, oh, what do you think is in this can? Oh, that's corn. Yes, you're right. You know, kind of thing, because he's going to need to know that when he gets older. And I'm looking at this thing. It's called, can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Orcam Read, but it's like a pen and you point it at the printing and it will read it to you. So that would help him a lot as well, because he just doesn't read and just has zero, I guess, interest in even attempting to, you know, like even when he colors, it's more like a 3 or a 4-year-old than an 11-year-old, you know. So, but he is who he is and does what he can, and that's all we can ask, right?
Which brings up another question that I didn't actually ask you on the questionnaire, but since we're here, so obviously they don't fit into a traditional school mold. So what are you going to educate them, for example?
So we unschool, and so basically whatever they're interested in, we fly with. Riker did go to kindergarten in the Dominican, but it only lasted about 3 weeks. So,
Okay.
and for me, it wasn't,
that system crashed and burned there. Okay.
so for me, he wasn't going for the education. He was just going to learn the language and stuff. And,
Exactly.
and anyway, they had to wear a uniform, and it was pretty structured, and we're not. And anyway, so one morning I was putting his uniform on. I said, we have to put your uniform on. You're going to school. And he said, I think I need a break from that woman. She talks way too much. And he meant the teacher.
That's hilarious.
And so the break turned into not going back, but
excuse me, that's another thing with autism. My older son struggles with people that talk too much. That gives them overwhelmed.
right. And for him, I think it was more, so Riker's not autistic, but I think for Riker, it was more, she talks a lot because she's speaking a language I don't understand.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and
for sure.
And like the teacher seemed to think that if he didn't understand, if she just spoke louder, he would understand. And their Spanish in the Dominican is really, really fast. And all the words are cut off.
Yeah.
So
Caribbean.
like it's not como estás, it's como ta.
Oh, how is it?
Como ta.
Oh my word, I don't know if I could survive there.
And so it's really hard to understand them because everything's cut off and everything's shortened, and you know, they talk really, really fast, and then she just speaks louder and just as fast, right? So he still doesn't understand her. So it's kind of funny. But my daughter, when she was 13, I believe, she looked online partly because I said to her, I said, you need to find a job that pays a lot of money, or you need to marry someone rich because you have really high taste. And she said, so she went online and she said, Mom, underwater welders make the most money. I'm going to do that.
What is that? I didn't catch what you said.
Underwater welders make the most money.
Underwater welders.
So she was going to do that. And she had been scuba diving. So she knew she liked scuba diving. So she was going to do underwater welding. Anyway, I said, well, have you welded before? Well, no. Well, a guy down the street from us was a welder, and he let her go and help him. And so if we were in Canada, that would not have been allowed because there's laws against, you know, against all that stuff. Like, you know, they need to be a certain age to do that, and you need to be in a certain program. There's insurance, there's, you know, all this stuff. And she's just going into this guy's shop and he's showing her how to weld and helping out, you know. It just wouldn't be allowed in Canada, but she was allowed there. And then my son, when he was 12, he asked a friend of ours who's a carpenter, not a carpenter, a cabinet maker, if he could go to work with him and show him some stuff. And so he went for like a week with him and did some stuff. And I bought the supplies, but he made like a cutting board and a bunch of stuff, right? So he might not have been able to do that in Canada, you know, as a homeschooler. So that was really cool, you know. And I've just done all kinds of interesting things, you know, that go with their whole learning and education, I guess you could call it.
And that's exactly what world schooling is. You're world schooling / maybe unschooling. World schooling is the world is your classroom, whereas, and correct me if I'm wrong on these, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. And then unschooling is you let the kids just follow their passion. They're not in a traditional classroom. It's
right.
So
right. And
those are two different schools of thoughts.
People have very different ideas of what unschooling is. Some people believe that, you know, the children can decide everything in their life, and I'm not that kind of unschooler. Like, my kids still have to go to bed and that kind of thing. But for us, unless they asked, I didn't do a lesson on it. So like my kids, Riker's 7, and
Your microphone went out for a second.
Sorry.
Okay, there, your microphone. The
Trying
last
to
thing
come
I
in.
heard was Riker was 7 and then your microphone went out. So let's continue.
Okay, so Riker is 7 and he's just learning to read now because he said to me, can you teach me how to read? Hello?
I'm still
you-
here. Yeah, I can hear you.
So unless they ask, I don't feel it's the time to push it and require them to learn it, because for me, if you think about it, you know, when you were in high school, what did you learn in, you know, grade 9 social studies? You probably don't remember because you had zero interest in it, you know.
Correct.
But if I asked you about something that you're passionate about, you could tell me everything, you know. And so if you're not interested in it, you're less likely to learn it and retain it. And so for me, unless they ask, I don't really.
You don't pursue it. Yeah.
Pursue
Got
it.
it.
You know.
Yeah.
Like he said, can you teach me how to read? And I said, I can, you know. And so we started a reading program, and, you know, and most days he asks, but some days he doesn't. And then we just don't do the reading program that day. Or I'll ask him, you know, did you want to do your reading program today? And if he says, no, I want a break. Okay. You know, it's not you need to sit down every day for 15 minutes and we're going to teach you how to read because you wanted to learn how to read. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
he might not be reading fluently until he's 8 or 9, and I'm okay with that, you know.
Hold on, just had an interruption. I'm in a Zoom call right now. Call me? No. Oh. But I still love you.
My daughter was 7 and she said, can you teach me how to read? Sure. And she was reading in a week because she was just that eager to learn how to read.
Nice.
You know?
Reading in a
But
week. Awesome.
my youngest son of my oldest 4, he was 6, and I said, do you think you want to learn how to read? And he said, no, because my wife's going to read for me. I was like, okay, Dad. And then a couple weeks later, we were at my friend's place, and his best friend, Abby, was reading, and she knew how to read. She was reading a book, and she said to him, she said, you better learn how to read because I'm not going to read for you forever. And then about 2 days later, he comes to me and says, can you teach me how to read? I don't know if he thought Abby was going to be his wife and read for him, but
that's so cute.
But anyway,
that's
so
cute.
he quickly learned how to read after that when he realized that she wasn't going to read for him for the rest of his life.
I love it. And they really literally take things very literally, and they take it to heart. So you have to be careful what you say to them, and
Right. And
it's just always interesting how their interpretation comes out.
I don't think me forcing him to read at 5 would have made him be reading at 6 anyway. You know what I mean? Or before, when he started to read. So I just feel that they learn things when they're ready, and
yeah,
that's the way it is.
This is a totally different philosophy than a lot of the conditioning, I should say, that we've been brought up in, that they have to have certain milestones after. Well, when you're working with kids that aren't ready, you just gotta wait and not push it and relax a little bit, Mom. It's fine. Things are gonna be fine.
And I think I've relaxed a lot more since we've started traveling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I realize that my kids aren't learning what kids in school are learning, but they know a lot more about different things than kids in school sometimes know. You know,
they're still learning, and they're learning a lot more because you are traveling. You know,
right? So like my daughter, my daughter went to live with her dad in grade 11. She was 16. She'd never been to school, and we'd always unschooled. So she'd never been made to sit down and learn about anything specific unless she wanted to. And she got credits for Spanish 10, 11, and 12, even though she'd never taken a course, because she learned Spanish while we were traveling. she got credits for social studies because she had read books about different things and could answer questions on them. Like she could take the test and pass the test to get the credits. So she got honors the first year she was in school, and she graduated with her friends the next year. So she graduated in 2 years instead of 3, like everybody else, with honors. So, it worked,
And it works, it does. Because you're out there instead of, I mean, I've interviewed other moms that have traveled, with their kids. Another mom that I interviewed named Liz is originally from Colombia. I don't know if you saw that interview, but she'd say, like, I have a child that's extremely interested in history and he wanted to go to Egypt. So they took a year off and went sabbatical and went to Egypt. And they have this awesome picture of them sitting on 3 camels, but they're in the cradle of the civilization. And I know another mom that currently lives there in Luxor. They're not just reading about it in textbooks, they're experiencing the whole thing. I mean,
exactly.
Who gets to experience that? And you've been able to do that with your kids.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like when we were in Mexico, we went to see a bunch of the ruins and stuff. Mm-hmm. And my 17-year-old was like, but who built them? And so we would Google who built them, where they came from, and mm-hmm. all of this kind of stuff, and what they used them for, and all of that kind of stuff, because my theory is, like, I can't possibly teach you everything you need to know in life, but I can teach you how to find the answers.
Mm-hmm. I love what you say. That is like that. And what another skill a very valuable skill that traveling full-time does, or just / living abroad in general, is problem solving.
Yes. Yes. You get really good at it. Really, really good at it. Because
why? Plan A never works. Rarely.
No.
When you're abroad in Latin America or any other country, something always, that plan will almost nearly fail every time. So then you go on to plan B, and then plan B hardly ever works either. This is what I'm finding.
Well, I had
and you just go down the alphabet, and after a while you don't even plan because you're just like, okay, wait.
Exactly. So I had a girl, and she had rented a place, and so she said, can you come get me? I have some errands to do. Sure. So I got on my scooter and I rode up there to go get her, and she gets on the scooter, and she pulls out this paper with all this list of stuff she wants to do, and I'm like, what is that? And she's like, oh, it's my list of things I need to do today. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to pick 3 and hope we get 2 done. Like the top 3 and hope we get 2 done, because that's the most we're going to get done today, because this lifestyle is way slower than what you're used to in the States. Like, you can't just walk into Walmart and get 10 things off your list, because we don't have Walmart. And so you just need to lower your standards a little bit and know that list will get done within the month. Like,
and how did she react to that?
She was like, like, what do you mean 3? Like the top 3. Oh, but like, are you going to run out of gas? No, gas is not the problem. I have plenty of gas. It's not the problem. But once we got going, she realized what it was like, like, mm-hmm. So she needed a chip for her phone. So we go to get a chip for her phone. Oh, it doesn't work with her phone. So now we got to go figure out how to get her phone unlocked so that she can get a chip. That's another step. And so we go to the one guy, he's not there. Then we got to phone the other guy, see where he is. And, like, it's just a whole ordeal to get anything done.
It's a whole different mindset. I mean, you're in a different country. You can't expect to get the things done that you get done in it, like, for example, a first world country. I don't want to say that, but it kind of is, and that is the good thing about the US and Canada, is that you can get things done. You can plan, but when you go to move, when you go to live abroad in another place, you're going to have some serious alterations in your routine and your mindset, and ultimately you're going to come out being this excellent problem solver who thinks outside the box, because you have to, and some people can't handle that.
Right. And
Mhm.
that's the thing, like people will message me and they'll ask a question and I'll say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Just off the top of my head, because I'm so used to problem solving and thinking outside the box that it's just normal for me. And they'll be like, whoa, I never even thought of that, you know? it's just,
They've never
it's just
had to think
now,
like that,
you know, like it's just second nature now, you know?
Yeah.
So and learning to do things differently than you do at home is another thing that's kind of can be difficult, but you get good at it over time, you know? So like in the Dominican, I didn't know the word for plunger and I couldn't find one anywhere, and we needed one. And I'm like doing this in the hardware store. I'm like, they were like, what does she want? You know, and so, and I don't know if they were just making up that they didn't know what I was talking about, or if they really didn't know what I was talking about. But anyway.
Or if they were men, they were interpreting it in a different way. I can tell you that.
Exactly.
It's to go there. I went there.
I went to this lady. She's quite a bit older than me, and I kind of think of her as a mom. And so I went to her and I said, come, because at that time I didn't speak hardly any Spanish. I'm like, look. And so my toilet was backed up. And she goes, oh. So she natters around to a kid, and the kid comes running back with a 2-liter pop bottle, like soda bottle. And she cut the bottom off it, like where you would stand the soda bottle. And she shoved it down the hole, and she just started plunging with that. And all of a sudden, whoop, down everything went. And I was like, oh, well, I could have got a soda bottle, you know.
But you didn't think that way.
We don't use that in Canada. We use a plunger.
Well,
you know.
Exactly.
But when they don't have a lot of money, they have to think of other ways to do things, you know. And it worked. And so I never did get a plunger. I just had a cut off soda bottle beside the toilet for when we needed it.
I love it. And I love these kinds of stories, because honestly, they're just like, what the heck? But it works. It doesn't matter.
And you know, a plunger isn't anything that you think of when you think of moving to another country. Like, you don't think, when I go to wherever you're going to, where would I find a plunger? And how would I ask for that? You know, like, you don't think of those things.
I love it.
You think, oh, I need my bathing suit because there's going to be a beach there. I need some clothes. I need some good walking shoes. I need this. I need that. You don't think about those things, you know. And then, like, I was asking around when we very first got to the Dominican Republic about a washing machine. And they were like, oh, yes, you can buy a washing machine. Just go to the, it's like Walmart, but not really. And they said, just go there. You can find a washing machine. Well, I went and I didn't see any washing machines, not like what I was used to. And so they have the old style washing machine, you know, with the wash tub on the side and the spinner on the other side. And that's how they wash clothes. And I was like, I've never used one of those before. My mom used one when I was a baby in the 70s, but I've never used one. And then I had to go and ask a neighbor lady to show me how to wash clothes in this machine. She probably thought I was the most stupid person out there, but it was just so funny. She's like, okay, you need a bucket for the rinsed water, and you rinse them in here. You wash them in the tub. So you fill the tub with water and soap, and you wash them in there. And then you take them out, you put them in a different bucket with clean water. And then there's another bucket with fabric softener.
Sounds like a lot of work. I'm already tired thinking about this.
It's a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
So then I'm like,
oh my gosh.
So after like 2 weeks of that, I'm like, can I hire somebody to come do this? So I did.
Oh, yeah. And it was affordable for you too. So,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
super affordable, but
That just reminds me of when we moved to Merida 2 years ago, Merida, Mexico. And we didn't have any hot water to wash the dishes with. And so I was at a loss of like, what do I do here? How do I wash the dishes? How do they get, help me out, disinfected or sanitized? And so I put it on Facebook, and I was treated maybe like you were, like, how come you don't know how to do the dishes here, And I really just didn't know how to figure that out, and I had to do it with chemicals. And honestly, I really could, that was a hard adaptation for me. And I never felt like the dishes were clean. They never felt like
Right.
completely clean without
Right.
water, things like that. So yeah, back to the problem solving, and I didn't last very long in that place. I'm just one that has to have my hot water. Call me snob, whatever, but I have to have that. Okay.
Right.
Okay, let's change gears just a little bit here. So what have you done for income sources when you've traveled or lived abroad?
Okay, so normally when people decide they're going to travel, they spend time planning how they're going to make an income while they're traveling. I did not do that. So we left, and I had like
Not do that.
yeah, that's not recommended. And so I kind of figured it out along the way. So over the years, when we first left, I had a big fancy camera because I did photography here in Canada. And so, GoPros weren't really a thing when we first started and things like that. So I would go to the beach and take pictures of people kite surfing and doing all their water sports with my big telephoto lens. And then I would, when they came in, I would come up to them and say, hey, I got these really great shots of you, and basically sell them their pictures on the beach through my iPad. And that worked really well. And then I started, because we were in a country where not very many people had credit cards and could order things online at that time. So they would come to me and say, there's this dress I want to order on eBay, but I don't have a credit card. Can you order it for me? So I'd order it and then add a percentage for me. So I ordered phones and tablets and things like that, or I would just order like 50 tablets from China or wherever, and then sell them for cash when they arrived, kind of things.
And you'd always be able to sell everything because they just couldn't get things, right?
Right.
Good
and
they
could get things, but they couldn't get new things or anything of really good quality because most of what comes there is from China. Mm-hmm. So like I would contact friends in Canada and say, like, if you're upgrading your phone, I'll buy your phone from you, or like my sister, because she had iPhone, after however long, there's no more Apple Care on it and they have to upgrade and they don't want the phone back. So she would just send me the phone for free and then I would sell the phone.
Wow, so resourceful. I love this. Again, getting back to the problem solving. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then so then I met a guy down the road from us and he's Haitian and he did art and but he sells his art to like the gift shops for like $5 per painting, and then the gift shop sells it for more, right? Mm-hmm. And so I took some pictures of his paintings and of him painting and stuff, and I put it online, and a lady who owned a hotel needed 18 paintings with specific colors, but he could do that. And so he painted them and I sent them to her, and I took 40% of what was made and he got 60. And so when I went to pay him, he had tears because he was so happy. He'd never been paid that much before, But once I started that, then it was like a snowball effect, because then all the artists were coming to me and saying, oh, I make this, I make this, I make this. And yeah, and I still do that sometimes for specific people.
That's beautiful.
So yeah.
Mhm. So look at the things you were able to help people with, because they couldn't figure out how to do it on their own. You were able to facilitate that from. That's really
Right.
a
And so I just
story.
I had to get resourceful with how to make money while I was traveling, because I couldn't just go get a job because I don't have a visa, and I don't, you know, I'm not able to do that. But for me personally, my philosophy in my head was, it's no different than living in Canada. So like when I was in Canada and I was a single mom, you know, and I wasn't getting a lot of money from my kid's dad, you know, I had to do what I needed to do to keep a roof over our heads and keep us afloat, you know. And so that meant, when I was in Canada, that meant running a 24-hour childcare business for people because we live by a hospital. So people in the hospital would bring their kids to me for overnight or like odd times. And I was the only one in the area that was doing that. Everybody else was open 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. But when you work, you know, 7 at night until 11 a.m, or however, or till whatever time in the morning, that doesn't work for you.
Right.
I had to be creative. And so when we started traveling, my theory was, traveling is a priority for me. So I need to do whatever it takes to maintain this lifestyle, just the same as you do when you live a regular life. You know, if you have a Porsche to drive and your kids are in every sport, and you know, and you get your nails done and have a spa day once a week, you do what it takes to maintain that lifestyle that you're used to, right? So when you're traveling full time, you do what it takes to maintain that lifestyle. It's not any different. And so you just have to be creative in how you fund that, you know?
And you've been so creative. You've done all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about selling artists' wares online. You've taught English online.
I have. I've sold dirty underwear online.
Can
You know,
how do you sell dirty underwear online?
there are actually specific sites that you can set up a profile, and I don't like to think about who buys them. That is not for me to know, nor do I care. But you know, you do what you got to do, right? And it saves on laundry. Let's just say that. So
that's a first, I think. Yeah.
But you know, like there's just so many things. Like I always say, because people will say, what can I do to fund my travels? And I'm like, you know, there are as many different ways to make money as there are world schoolers traveling. You know, and like the world schooling groups that I'm in have up to and over 30,000 members. And if you think that, you know, half of those people are traveling full time, you know, that's 15,000 different ways to make money online.
Excellent point.
You know, and what works for me might not work for you, or what works for you or someone else might not work for me. You know, like I know people who sell, like, I don't even know what it's called, but you know, the MLM, multi-level marketing.
Network marketing.
Right. I know people who do that and they're very successful at it and they make a lot of money. That's not for me, you know. There's people who create apps and websites. I don't have those skills, you know. So everybody has their skills and their passions, and just work with that, you know.
Exactly. I love how open-minded you are and just resourceful, and you're such a great person. You're like my go-to person if like I can't figure this out, and I know you're going to come up with an idea.
Right. I'm really good at,
So much about you.
I told my partner when we first met, I'm like, I'm a solutionizer. And
Solutionizer, I love it.
because if there's a problem, I just like,
I'm putting that word in my dictionary now. Solutionizer.
Right, so like, when I was on my trip to Europe in early 2020, I left in January. I had a couple of hiccups coming home with the airplanes and stuff. And so the first time it happened, a drone had flown over the airport where we were supposed to land. So we had to go to a different airport, land, and wait for them to sort out the issue and then come back. But by the time we came back, my plane to where I was supposed, my connection had left.
Yeah.
And so I get to the counter and she's like, your connection is left. And I'm like, so what do I do now? And she's like, well, you'll have to call your airline, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay. So I went and sat down and I'm like, okay, we need to calm down. We need to think. We need to figure out what we're going to do. I can't just sit down and cry because that's not going to do anything. You know, later I can cry, but right now we have to sort this out. So I went to the counter of the airline that I was flying and they said, oh, you booked through a third party. You're going to have to call the third party. Okay. So I go sit down and I went to call on Skype, but they didn't have a 1-800 number, so it wasn't free. And I'm like, ugh. So I had to put credit on my Skype and I called them, but they took care of it. You know, and then it happened again, not drones, but something else at the next one. And I was like, you know, but, you know, I just had to sit down and think, okay, this is the problem. What are my options? How can I fix it? How can we get from here to wherever I need to be? You know, and it's that way almost every day while you're traveling, you know, like, okay, so we got on this bus, the bus dropped us off in the middle of a cornfield. What do we do now? You know, like kind of thing, right? Like you just kind of source things out, but you learn from the things that happen. You know what I mean? Like everything that happens and you have to solutionize for, you learn from that, you know? So.
But how did things turn out? Now I'm left with the intrigue.
Oh, for coming back?
Yeah.
I got back, but it was 4 days of traveling instead of like one overnight. Okay. But the company, it was called kiwi.com, and I had booked my flights through Skyscanner, and they just kind of give you a list and you can book through whoever you want. And so I booked through that company and I had no experience with them whatsoever, but I've never had issues with flights like that before.
Yeah.
It's always just kind of been fine.
A new challenge, a new hurdle that you can handle.
Right.
That haven't handled before. So
I flew from England to Oslo, Norway, and that was supposed to be like, a 2-hour layover. But when I went to go through customs, he said, are you, I forget how he worded it, but basically, are you traveling on? And I said, yes. And so he said, okay. And
ongoing
he said,
travel is what it's called.
Yeah.
You have
but because he didn't speak English as a first language, he worded it differently.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, yes. And so he said, wait. And he called somebody, and this guy came and he said, follow me. And the guy handed me back my passport. And he took me through this door and down these stairs into like a waiting area for a plane, there was like where the gates were. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so I asked somebody, I'm like, I don't have a boarding pass. Is that okay? She's like, yeah, that's fine. Then I go to board the plane. Oh, you don't have a boarding pass and your passport was never stamped like you entered the country. You're going to have to go back through and you're going to have to do this again. I'm like, then I'm not going to get on the plane. So I had to call the company and they said, okay, well, we can put you on a different flight tomorrow to Spain, because I was supposed to go directly from Norway to New York.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Anyway, so she's like, we can put you on a different flight tomorrow to Spain and then on to home. Okay. So the next day I got on the flight to Spain. I'm like, yes, I'm going home. And that was the whole drone issue.
Mm.
So then they said, okay, so we can put you on a flight tomorrow to, I forget where, but it was a whole nother place. And then I could go home. Okay. So I get on a plane the next day. I go to the next place. It was so confusing because days just started running into each
Running
other.
into one,
Like
yeah. Mhm.
I'm tired and I'm,
Yeah.
Anyway, so the first night they said that I could catch a flight the next day. And I was like, okay, so I just slept in the airport.
Yeah, that
And
was my
then-
next thought. Like, where are you staying this whole time?
So
Yeah.
then the second day that it happened, I'm like, look it, I am not sleeping on the floor, freezing my butt off again for the second day. You need to find me a hotel that has a free shuttle to and from the airport,
Mhm.
because I don't have a credit card. I don't have anything. And they were like, okay. So they found me a hotel with a shuttle. I had 4 baths in one evening.
Poor bastard, I mean, I love it.
I was like, I deserve this. So anyway,
For sure.
then the next morning I went back, I got on my flight, and I was able, and then I had to spend one more night again at the next place. And then finally I was able to get back. It was all good. But before I had left, I was kind of concerned because I was looking at the fine print. So if I went to New York, I would have landed in JFK airport and had 45 minutes to make my way to LaGuardia airport.
Yeah.
And people were telling me that that was next to impossible with even with a taxi. But
Yeah.
the taxi was going to cost like $150. And I'm like, I don't really want to pay that. Anyway, so I believe that the universe helped me not have to take that $150 taxi ride.
So you landed in LaGuardia instead?
No,
JFK.
I didn't go to New York at all because I ended up going to Spain and then to, I forget where the other place was, and then to the Dominican. I didn't even go to the States.
Oh, wow, that's quite the journey.
But I try and find a positive in everything. And so I kind of took it as, well, I got to see Spain, and well, I got to experience this hotel, and I got to go here, and I love it. That, and do you know what I mean? Instead of
roll with it.
Oh, it was so horrible, and and
you just
for me
put a few more stamps on your passport.
exactly, and it just, it is what it is, right? Like I stayed in one hostel in Italy, in Rome, and it was more like a homeless shelter. But and I could say it was horrible and it was this and it was that, but I met some really great people there, and so it wasn't horrible, so I think you just have to kind of, I was telling my partner this the other day. I said, when I first started traveling, I thought I was a really positive person. But now when I look at posts, you have the memories on Facebook and stuff. When I look at those posts, I think, wow, I was really negative, And so I realized how much I've grown over the last 10 years,
Totally. And I always have in my mind something that you told me. I've gathered so much wisdom from you over the years that we've known each other. A few short years, we've known each other for about 3 years now.
I think so, yeah.
But we've talked a lot, and you and I obviously have a lot more to talk about and explore. And we could talk for hours and days on end, maybe years.
Right.
But what was the whole point? Oh, one of the first things that I remember that you told me is, oh no, it wasn't one of the first things. I think it was just last year when we connected. I was like, what am I going to do? And I had partnered up with somebody who didn't have the same philosophy as I was. And you made me realize, you know, living abroad and traveling just changes you from the core. And then that's when I realized that I was in an incompatible relationship, that there were a lot of core things that had gone on because I had been through this, you know, living abroad experience, but he hadn't, you know.
Right. And I think part of the thing is like when you are, especially for single moms, like for me, traveling as a single mom really empowered me, you know, because I could plan and do all these things all by myself without anyone's help, without anyone's assistance. You know, I could manage, I could manage in a country that I didn't speak the language, that I didn't know where I was going, all of these kinds of things. And it really empowered me, you know, and I didn't feel that empowered when I left my first husband, you know. I felt really fragile and really, you know what I mean? But with traveling abroad, I just felt really empowered and really, you know. And so then when I met my partner now, I was like, okay, so we travel. And if that's not okay with you, then I'm okay with you just continuing on. You know, like, I don't need you. I want to be with you, but I don't need you, you know.
Right.
And I think that really helped, was that I had traveled full time as a single mom first, you know, and that really changed me.
Oh, it absolutely did. And if you have someone in your life, it's because you want them in your life, not because you need them, because people like you and I, and you're much cooler than I am, and you're more of an expert than I am in this. But we've learned how to just, you know, handle this on our own. And I think it's been a good example for our kids. I honestly do. My boys have told me, like, Mom, you don't just talk about it, you actually just do it. And when they're ready to fold, like, Mom, what are we going to do? We're in this situation. I'm like, look, and even this month, you know, finances have been tough. And my younger son used to like, what are we going to do, Mom? What are we going to eat? You know, he's like, Mom, don't even worry about it. I know that we can pull something out and put something together. These are the kinds of skills that our kids are learning. My youngest one says, Mom, we've got enough food to put things together. And I had a little mini triumph in that moment, thinking, I'm teaching my kids to be resourceful, because it's very easy when you've got lots of money and you can buy whatever you want and have whatever you want. You have choices. But when you get down to that point where money is tight, I had a client, a big payment that she defaulted on. She hasn't paid. I'm actually suing her in the US. Okay?
Right.
And so the money has been tight. But my little one's saying, and he's 15, he's saying, Mom, I know how to put food together. I know how to create a meal. I mean, those are real skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Something with nothing, you know. They know how to be resourceful. It's awesome.
Right. And so, like, back when we first got to the Dominican, we got there in October. And so we really wanted to do Thanksgiving. That was important to us. And Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. And they don't do that there. And so my daughter and I sat down and I'm like, okay, so what's really important to you for Thanksgiving dinner? And we kind of asked everybody that, you know. And then my daughter said she really likes stuffing. And I said, well, they don't really make box stuffing here. And she goes, okay. And then a few days later, she came back and she goes, but I looked online and you can make stuffing with bread like grandmas used to make. So we could do that.
Yeah.
So we found a recipe and we made it like that, you know, and she liked it. So, you know, we had to find different ways of doing things, but we were able to do it. Like, what can we use that would be somewhat like that, but maybe not exactly, you know?
And the plan B, C, D, all the way down.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And even, you know, I have a funny story about like communication and learning the language and stuff. So when we first moved there, we wanted to have a barbecue, and we didn't have a gas barbecue. They were really expensive to buy, but I thought, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I thought that if we had briquettes, you know, like charcoal, we could do a barbecue that way. So I went to the little, they call it Colmato, but it's like a little store that sells a little bit of everything in the village. And I was trying to explain, you know, I need the stuff to make the fire to cook food on, you know. And they were like, oh, he's like, chicken? I'm like, no, I have chicken, that's fine, you know. Anyway, this one lady, she's like, oh, I know what she means. She means salchicha, which is like hot dogs. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so I called my friend who had rented us the place, and I called him and I said, and I was so proud because I figured out the word on my own. And I said, Jose. And he said, yes. I said, I need salchicha. I need a lot of salchicha because I'm cooking chicken. And he said, okay. He said, I will get it on my way home. So at 5 o'clock, he pulls in the road, and he comes up to my house with this big shopping bag, and he's got 4 big packages of hot dogs. And I was like, I can't cook chicken on the barbecue with hot dogs. I need charcoal briquettes. And he's like, oh, you mean carbone. So he went and got me some, and so we were eating hot dogs for weeks after that. And somebody told me it was salchicha, and I didn't know. And anyway, and then after that, you know, then the next day I said, oh, the word was carbone. And Pedro, the guy at the Colmato, he goes, oh, I have a lot. He had this big, huge sack full of it. But because I didn't know the word, he couldn't sell it to me, you know. So it was really funny in a way. And it was a real learning experience.
Very funny.
You know, to try and figure out how, you know, when you first start thinking about living in another country, you don't think about like that kind of stuff, you know, like the very first time I went to Pedro's, I had taken Spanish in high school, but I didn't remember any of it because I'd never ever used it. So I went in and I said, yo quiero, because I knew that meant I want. And he's like, sí. And he's waiting for me to say what I want. And I'm like, well, crap, now I don't know what the rest of the sentence is. I don't know what I want. I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to say the word in Spanish. So I was like, yo quiero. And he's like, oh. So then he says, ¿cuánto? And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you asking me now? I want a chicken. Like I wanted a whole chicken, right? But he was asking me, because they sell it by the pound, how much do I want? Do I want a quarter of a pound, a half a pound, you know? And I'm like, 1. And he's like, so he takes his knife, he's like, 1? Like 1 pound? And I'm like, no, 1. Finally, we established it was 1 chicken, but it was really funny, you know, like, and the poor guy, but he was really patient with me. And he was the reason how I learned a lot of my Spanish, because every time I'd come, he'd say, come in. And he'd tell me to show him what I wanted. And I would just pick up what I wanted. And then as he was ringing it up and putting it in a bag, he would say, huevo.
I love it. He give you the vocabulary right there, huevo. And then what
else?
Give me
the words that I needed, right? And I was like, oh, okay. You know, so it worked really well, but you don't always get patient people like that.
Well, Latin America is full of patient people. It's just, you've got to make it work with whoever you're working with. And they are a lot more patient than people learning English in our countries.
Right. His wife was so not patient. We would come up and she would go, Pedro, the gringos are here.
I love it.
Now she's a really good friend. Like now, every time I come in, she's like, oh, Reina, you know, and telling me how much she loves me. But at the beginning, it was like, those stupid people. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But part of it was, I realized later, part of it was the village where they live has a lot of foreigners coming, and they come for a week and then they don't ever come back. And in the past, when she was younger, she had met a friend and was really close friends with this person. And then that person left and she never ever saw them again. So she kind of felt, I don't know how she felt, but so she was kind of guarded after that and didn't want to befriend people if she felt that they were going to leave and never come back, right?
Right.
So.
Right, that makes complete sense. Because she's not going to invest in that relationship, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the way people really think all over the place in Latin America that I've seen.
And that's the sad part, is that like
people
people
around
come and they want to be invested in their life, but then they leave and then they never come back,
And it breaks their heart when that happens. It really does, because they're sentimental, sensitive people.
Well, and not only that, but like when you're in a country where you don't have a lot, and this person is helping you out and whatever else they're doing for you, and then they disappear, you really have a high sense of, I guess, value for that person,
Esteem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you just don't feel that it's the same, and especially back before internet was huge, for them more so than for us, because we had it long before they ever did. Staying connected was really difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unless you went back to visit, you would never see them again, right? Whereas now you meet somebody, you can be Facebook friends and communicate on Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform, and like the lady in the Dominican that I call my mom, she calls me every day on Messenger, how are you? How are my kids? Those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So it's so much easier to stay in contact nowadays than it was before, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. As long as you have internet, then you can connect with anyone pretty much.
Right. And quite a lot of times, if I can't connect with the lady that I call my mom because she doesn't have money for phone minutes or whatever, I can go online to the company that she's with and I can put minutes on her phone for her. So I do that quite often with friends of ours, we call it the minute fairy. So they'll message me and they'll say, did you put minutes on my phone? And I'll be like, what are you talking about?
The minute fairy, I love it. Love it. Mm-hmm.
Just as kind of a small gift, because I don't have a lot of money and I can't send you hundreds of dollars to help out with your rent or whatever you need, but I can send you, $5 worth of minutes so that we can talk on FaceTime or whatever we need to do, right?
That's completely right. Well, what's next for you, Christie?
So for now, so for a long time I had a really hard time with the thought of settling down and the thought of, living in one place. And I realized that it was because traveling has become like my sense of identity, because, I've been traveling for 10 years. And so it's really been my sense of identity. So for 10 years, it's been, hi, I'm Christie, I travel full time, and,
right.
And it was scary to me to think, what would I be if I wasn't traveling full time, And so for now, like we've discussed it, and we really want to find a property here in New Brunswick because it's really cheap. Alberta's really expensive. So it's way on the other side of the country. I've never lived in this part of Canada or even seen this part of Canada before we came here. And it's really beautiful. And so we're exploring this area. We want to buy property. And then, so I told my partner, I said, I'm okay with settling down, but I still need to travel like, 1 or 2 times a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's okay with that. So that's kind of what's going to be happening now. I think I am going to start a online course of like traveling and that kind of stuff, just to stay connected. And yeah, that's kind of the plan. we do, we have a plan to do a bike tour around Atlantic Canada in the summer. So that'll be fun. And yeah, those kinds of
You
things.
just, in the summer, you went on a huge bike tour. You're on your own. How many miles or kilometers did you go?
1,400 kilometers, which is about 800 miles.
Oh, wow.
I did it in 19 days. And so when I started that trip, it was really funny. I made my route kind of a funny backwards G. And so the bottom of that backwards G was where a friend of mine lives. And my whole thinking in my head was, if I get that far and I think I can't go any farther, at least Scott can come pick me up and take me home. It's not super far. But I got that far and I was like, ooh, I went that far. I guess I could keep going. And I just kind of kept focusing on the next little bit. And I did it, you know, and it was pretty inspiring for me because I'd never cycled or been athletic in my life. Like, I'm not stick thin. I am not athletic. I'm not anything. Like, I've never played sports in my life. And before this, the last time I rode a bike, I think I was 16, you know? So for me, it was like, wow, I did this, you know? And
for me too. I was watching you and I'm like, she's doing this and she's still going. And it went on for quite a while.
Right. And at the beginning, like before I even started, I was planning on, okay, I can probably cycle about 20 kilometers a day. And then I was looking at the map, I was like, oh, I'm never going to get anywhere if I cycle 20 kilometers a day. But I was able to actually, the one day I did 114 or something. I was like, holy smoke. Like,
that's a lesson in self, what's the word? Now you're going to help me come up with the word, self-fulfillment, or that you're able to, I can only think of it in Spanish, which is superar. Overcoming challenges, and it really depicts your life, how it's been, because your life from the get-go has been full of challenges, and you just gone up and you're like, okay, I've hit a peak here, let's get up there, let's keep going.
Right.
It's really this is me to you.
And I just kind of think, like, I had a client one time and it bothered me when she said it, but now it kind of makes sense, you know? But anyway, we were driving and I was driving them to where they were going. And she had said, we were talking about like how I got started and stuff like that. And she said, wow, you're a really kind of stand on the edge of the cliff kind of person. Like really like to take, I think she meant,
live on the edge.
That's the word. Mm-hmm. And at the time I kind of took it as like, not offensive, but like, kind of like, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
That really isn't you at all. From what,
right. But then I realized it kind of seems that way because when I decide to do something, I just go do it, as opposed to, I'd really like to travel full time, but, you know,
getting in the way.
I just, yeah, you know, and I've had people message me and say, I really want to travel full time, but, and then I think of a solution for that but, and then they have 10 more, you know, and I'm like, well, if you really don't want to, then, do you know what I mean? But for me, if I really want to do something, you know, like I said to Scott, months before I did the bike trip, I said, I want to do this bike trip. And he said, okay, do you think you can do it? And I said, well, I don't know, but if I don't, then I come home. Like, you know, what's the harm in trying? Yeah. You know, and that's my thing. That's my thing. So my thing is like, you never know until you do it. And even with traveling full time, like if we would have went to the Dominican Republic and it didn't work and we hated it, and, you know, then I would do whatever I needed to do to scrape up the money to get us back to Canada, and we would stay with a friend or whatever, and until we could get back on our feet and start over again, you know?
That's the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing, like there's always the worst case scenario, but it rarely ever comes.
Yeah.
No?
Exactly.
Like we think all these worst case scenarios, but really something that big happens.
Yeah.
What we think is going to happen.
We've made
right?
it out to be this big in our mind, and it's really like this little.
Yeah, So
Yeah.
I just kind of, and that's the thing, like, and now my thing, because I'm almost 50, my thing is I'm not getting any younger. And I don't know how much more time I have. So let's do all the things that we want to do instead of waiting until I'm 65 and I'm supposed to do all these things. Do you know what I mean?
Now, I don't even think supposed is in your should and supposed, or not even in your vocabulary, and they're certainly not in mine either.
No, but
They used to be, but
as
not
opposed
anymore.
as opposed to like what society says you should do. Do you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be doing all these things until you retire. But I'm like, retire from what?
I
can
think
do
we've
whatever I
dashed
want.
all of society's expectations at this point. We're living outside the matrix. We don't do things traditionally. We do things on our own terms and as they come, and that's the way we live. And I think it's the best way to live.
It totally is.
Okay.
It really is.
Awesome. I always enjoy our talks. And is there anything that I haven't asked you today that we haven't discussed that you would like to include?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's been super interesting, super dynamic. Would you like to be contacted? If so, how can people contact you?
I'm on Instagram as What If It's Amazing. And my email is whatifitsamazing@gmail.com. So.
What If It's Amazing? Different social platforms. So we've got
on most
email, Instagram, Facebook would be Christie Ogden, correct?
Yes.
And that's Christie with CHRISTIE, Christie Ogden. Yes. Okay, and then TikTok as well. So
I do TikTok.
Yes, pretty amazing. Well, thank you so much. On a side note, before we conclude here, for those of you who've been watching, don't forget to subscribe as we feature a lot of interesting perspectives in these podcast interviews in both English and Spanish. So Christie Ogden, thank you so much for being on here today. Thank you for being my friend. I just learned so much. I'm so inspired by you and the things that you've overcome and the things that you continue to overcome. I mean, you are just, I'm not going to take my hat off because I'm having a bad hair day today. That's why the hat is on in the first place. But thank you so much. You've got my respect. Namaste. Honestly,
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I love you so much, and we will be very much in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.